Hey guys, welcome to Tech Talks by Gaurav Sharma. Today, our topic of discussion is cybersecurity as a career choice. And to discuss that, we have a phenomenal leader with us who has been with IT industry for over 25 years. She has jumped up the ladder starting from a engineer level all the way to senior level to now actually coaching leaders on how to be a better leader through her own startup, Valiant Leadership. Let's welcome Dr. Cindy Goodwin-Sak.
Hi, Gaurav. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Cindy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, we're so pleased to have you, and I'm personally looking forward to this discussion.
I am as
um,
well.
Yeah, so I mean, we had a lot of people talking about cybersecurity, how to get into that, and I thought it would be best to kind of reach out to you and discuss, like, if to get your thoughts and guidance on uh, what to do, like how do we get into this cybersecurity world, and just talk about your experiences, like what has your career journey been like, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's been an awesome ride. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I did start in tech about 25 years ago. I had a lot of computers around as a kid, um, even though they were Apple, like Apple IIe or whatever it was back in the day. But just because I was around computers, I was pretty comfortable with them, which just gave me sort of a head start. So eventually, when the tech boom started, I just had a knack for technology, and went for it. And I started with certifications because really the tech world wasn't valuing and still honestly just doesn't really value college degrees. And so I got a few certifications and went to work for some startups. And uh, the thing that I was really compelled to do at the time was to find something hard to do. Because I just believe that people, like, we're wired to be lazy and, like, and just risk averse. So I thought, well, most people aren't going to do the hard thing. So what's the hardest thing I can find? Because I was really trying to make myself marketable. And I thought, well, Cisco at the time, all command line. And I was like, well, that seems pretty hard. It's got some math, and I like math. So I went into Cisco Technologies and got a bunch of certifications, and that was sort of the beginning. I went to work for a couple of resellers doing installs. And then again, just like choosing Cisco technology, I figured out the different billable rates for the various VARs. So they would bill out routing and switching at one price per hour to the customers. And at the time, telephony was the highest hourly rate, and security was somewhere in between routing and switching and telephony. So I went and specialized in telephony, and then I eventually specialized in security, and then I got lucky enough to be hired by Cisco. So
That's awesome. I
I
mean,
yeah.
we know like the great things that you have achieved in your tenure at Cisco. Big fan of your work. And so, in your journey, was there any like a key turning point or a big milestone that you like to talk to us about?
Yeah. I always knew I wanted to keep learning new things. I'm a super curious person, and I'm just always learning. And there was one moment where I was going after another certification. I'd already had my CWNA wireless certification, and I think I was going to go for the CWNP. And I just thought, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to learn more wireless again. So I thought, what do I want to learn? What can I learn for like a longer period of time? Because that was like maybe a decade, and I'd already gotten tired of learning sort of the same technology over and over again. So that's when I figured out I wanted to learn about people, and I decided that would take me a lifetime. So that was like the pivotal moment for me, moving into leadership and management, and for all the wrong reasons, and figuring out how to do it better than I first started. So yeah, that was the big moment for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, you're focused on leadership these days, like coaching leaders how to be better leaders. Do you want to talk about that? Like what you're up to recently with your
Sure.
Valiant leadership, your startup?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first became a leader, there was no training, leadership training really at Cisco. They sort of threw you in. I think they still do that a bit. So everything I learned was through books and podcasts and things like that. But the higher I went in the organization, the more I recognized that leadership styles were varied dramatically, and the leadership at the mid-level, first or second line management, it was very, very different than the leadership at the SVP level, and sometimes for the good and sometimes not for the good. And so it again sparked my curiosity. I wanted to understand why we promote certain leaders when you're like, you're not a great leader, or you are a great leader. Why did you get where you are? And then I wanted to understand how to articulate that in a way that could help everybody be better leaders. So I went back, I got my doctorate, actually was studying a different topic at the time. My dissertation is on trust and all about how sellers and engineers trust each other. But I studied leadership behaviors that have the most positive impact on their team, and so that's what I do now. I help people understand the leadership behaviors that create the most innovative, creative, and psychologically safe environments. Because I think that's pretty important with AI coming in. You got to have folks that are able to pick up the technology and put themselves out of their old job and create the new ones.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but your doctorate still fits in because we're all about zero trust as well.
That's right. That's
So
exactly right.
that's all cybersecurity is all about.
That's
Um,
right.
like for I want to understand like what advice would you give to someone that's just starting their career, and how big of a role does certification and your college degree play in pursuing a cybersecurity career?
So in cybersecurity in particular, because it's so high demand, and there's such a gap in the market, it's a great place to go. And so if you look through it with the same lens that I was looking through, you're you're trying to make yourself marketable. You are the product or service that you're selling to an organization. And so investing in cybersecurity knowledge is fantastic. Now, you can get some foundational skills in a university. You probably can get some really good school skills at a university, but it changes so rapidly that certification, especially a specific technology certification, is definitely a way to go to get started in your journey. And so yes, I did actually eventually go back and get my undergrad, but I got it after I had two CCIEs. And it was only because I wanted to get a master's in business. At the time, there was very little training, business type training outside of master's in business. So you can't get a master's degree without an undergrad. So that's the only reason I finished mine, was so I could actually pursue some other training. Um, Never needed it. There was one time in my career, a company named Foundry Technologies refused to interview me, even though I had a route switch CCIE. They refused to interview me because I didn't have a college degree. And I was like, I don't want to work for a company like that anyway.
That's right. That's
So,
right. I
like,
mean,
that's too old school.
yeah. I mean, when I kind of like when you kind of interview somebody, yeah. Obviously, you look at what they have studied in school and college, but definitely when you talk to somebody, it's mostly what they know, right? And
Exactly.
that is where these certifications play a big role as to get started. So that makes total sense.
Well, and
Um,
certification is a proof point, right? I just want to like call it out. Like, you don't
yeah,
have to have the certification, but it's hard to prove that you know something on paper
yeah.
without a certification. So it's really just that it opens the door, just like sometimes the college degree opens the door.
That's right. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, without if there's like a certain eligibility criteria, and say, for example, they need certain level of studies or certification that gets you in the door. But the real thing is when you talk and you
exactly.
showcase your knowledge. So that makes total sense. And
100%.
and so like I felt like in my career as well, I've like having a mentor is very important, right? How would you, what would you like to talk about, like talk on that sense? Because how would you, somebody go to secure a mentor, or like, how do you go about it, having a mentor? Because
Yeah.
that has helped me, and that typically helps everybody who has a
Right.
mentor to kind of learn and grow in the career. So,
Yeah. I very, have had actually very few mentors in my career. Largely because uh, I didn't know who to ask, like at the various stages. I wasn't. We'll talk a little bit about sponsors in a moment, but so I didn't have a lot of mentors. I did have a one of my director. Way when I was an individual contributor, decide he was going to be my mentor. So he was in my chain of command. That was kind of awkward. Ended up being a really great, I learned a ton from him. But I had also learned to be a mentee. But um, I find so I've mentored a ton of people myself, and the most valuable relationships are when there's a bidirectional value exchange. So I'm getting ready to release a book on actually managing your career, navigating your career, and I talk about this. Like, don't say, "Will you be my mentor?" That is not it. Go understand what expertise people have. Talk about what your skills you're looking for, and it's a little bit like dating. You see if it's a good fit, but you got to figure out what the challenges are that the potential mentor is facing. You have to be able to offer insight or resources or research or work on a project that you want it to be a bi-directional
Right.
relationship. So those are the best. And then I have had several sponsors in my career, and sponsors, while mentors talk to you, sponsors talk about you when you're not in the room and they sell your skills for projects and promotions. I have had several sponsors. I've never asked for one, but I've had several who talk about me and I've sort of stumbled upon them. But those typically start with a deeper relationship that requires a significant amount of trust because that individual is putting their own reputation on the line when they talk about you in those meetings. Um, but a little bit of the difference, but definitely seek out the mentorship and look for people that have skills that you need and that you can potentially help as well.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
you said you had
great
a
to
lot of
know.
mentors. I'm curious, like, how did you go about getting mentors?
For me, like you said, it's like a give and take, right? I mean, just to understand, um, and it doesn't have to be somebody up in the chain to be your
Hmm.
mentor, right? Sometimes you seek advice from your 5-year-old daughter, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so from that perspective, when your ability to think more or just understand more kind of like hits the wall, that's when I feel like you reach out and then just get different perspective from different people, and it works out. I mean, I feel like when I talk to my daughter or my 3-year-old son, it's sometimes they mentor me, right? Because
I
I'm
love it.
talking and I'm looking at it from their perspective of how they're looking at things. So definitely helps out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's another type of relationship that people don't talk about a lot, which I call a sparring partner. And so it's someone within the organization where you have essentially mutual, roughly the same level of power and deep respect, deep respect for each other. And then you intentionally challenge each other. You push each other. You play devil's advocate. You role play. And I have had a sparring partner for the vast majority of my career. And that for me is a true game changer. And with a sparring partner, it's one of those things where you sponsor each other, right? So you are elevating each other as you go. You essentially grow together, but in a non-competitive way. But you're constantly challenging each other to get better and to get uncomfortable. And that is a really unique relationship that's hard to find. But if you find one, you hold on to it for with everything you got.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. I've never had that,
Yeah.
because it's like you said, it's rare to find, but definitely a great point there. Um, and like for some people, like some people that are like on their way on their career journey, right? What do you recommend? So you started as an engineer, and I know when you left Cisco to move on to Valiant leadership, you were vice president for global security sales organization.
Uh-huh.
So what advice would you give to people like mid career? Like how do they advance in their career? They get to next level.
Um, I tell people to think strategically about two things: skills and network in particular. Brand matter, your personal brand matters too, but the skills that you have and the network you have. So most people just think about the next role that they're going to get, and I encourage people to think two roles ahead. It because that's like if I play chess, I can liken it to playing chess. And if I play chess, I'm not very good at it, but I can sometimes see two moves ahead. And that's kind of what you want to do. And the idea is that what is the next role that you might take that is a platform to the follow-on role? What network will you build in that role? Because the vast majority of jobs are discovered and identified through your network. What are the skills that you will build that will propel you to the next role? So that's people who are mid-career. I say be very thoughtful about what you want in, let's say, 5 to 7 years. Be thoughtful. What's your family environment going to look like? What type of role do you want to have? And then be planful and thoughtful about the next role that it moves you closer to that.
That makes total sense. That's great advice. Um, and so like you touched on it a little bit, but like from a networking standpoint, right? We all talk about it's a human network that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
what role has networking played in your career so far?
It's kind of a love-hate relationship. So I'm a hardcore introvert with a little bit of social anxiety. And so like networking doesn't like networking, Cisco networking comes very easily to me. Like that I get.
I
The
wonder how.
human part, yeah, the human part is tough. But once I figured out that it's really about um, who can I help today? And somewhere along the way, I saw this HOPE acronym, help one person every day. And I was like, gosh, that's a good way to think about networking. So I think about networking in terms of, is there someone out there that I could help today, offer like through talking about career or something like that. And if you look at networking that way, yes, I want to see how I can help that person because I think that person knows the people around the next role. That's totally okay, right?
Yeah,
But when I look at it through the lens of I'm going to help that person, I'm going to make them as successful as I possibly can. That just makes the whole thing a lot easier.
yeah, yeah. That makes total sense. And to just to pile onto that question, networking, it's an era of social media
Mm.
now, right? So
Yeah.
how does one leverage that to kind of for their benefit or like in their career? How does somebody use the social media that's everybody's on these days?
I think COVID did us a favor with making virtual meetings so accessible. In a large corporation that has a virtual meeting platform or a meeting platform, yeah, everybody in that organization is used to having a video meeting, but people outside weren't. And now they're really comfortable with it. So really, you can massively expand your network using social media because you can find anyone that has something in common and anyone that you might be able to help in a moment. So people are far more open to you reaching out and just scheduling a virtual coffee to see like, what do you do? What do I do? Can we help each other? The one thing that has concerned me as I do see layoffs in the tech industry is that people are waiting until they've been impacted by a layoff to work on their network. And it just hurts my heart because that's just too late, right? Then it
Yeah.
just it feels bad, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't network if you're impacted, but gosh, you could have been doing so much more before. So I I strongly encourage people to use things like LinkedIn to find people, even at competitors. You don't have to talk about the technology. You can just talk about selling. What is like, how do you talk to customers? Or it could just be how do you teach yourself? How do
Right.
you organize your productivity? Just to meet people and learn from each other. I think that is the key.
Yeah.
Um, and don't be afraid of rejection, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's the big fear for a lot of folks.
It's true. I mean, it's kind of like because everybody's on social media, it's just like meeting somebody like at a party, right? Because there's
Right.
everybody there. Like, what do you say? Like, how do you reach out? And so there are so many barriers that are in your mind. But if you have something um, meaningful to add or like to seek, I think people everywhere are very helpful to kind of help out and just building a strong community together even on social media as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am a big fan of LinkedIn. The rules are just a little bit different there. They're a little bit more professional.
Mhm.
And people expect to make professional connections on LinkedIn. Commenting on what people post, that's the greatest way to open the door to a conversation, adding value to somebody else's posts.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a post to go out without comments. So if you comment on somebody's post, like you did them a favor, right?
Yeah,
So
for
it's
sure.
actually pretty easy to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, to just get started, even if you just say you agree or you don't just or you don't agree, that's a good start, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of helps you get over that mindset of like, what do I say, what do I comment and stuff. So,
Yeah.
100%. And just to I have like from a cybersecurity perspective, like you've been in cybersecurity for so long, where do you see cybersecurity going in the next 5 to 10 years, and what's the opportunity that lies for us?
Well, I mean, there was such a significant shortage over the last decade of people in cybersecurity. Um, AI is not going to make that any less. It's going to exacerbate it as companies are trying to determine what's real, what's not real. I mean, we were trying to determine that already, but now attackers are just going, bad actors are just going to get better at using technology to blur the lines between real and not real, and social engineering, just all the different things. So cybersecurity is definitely going to grow. The thing I see most common when people want to get into cybersecurity is they don't know where to start. And that's where the cool thing about cybersecurity is that it's pervasive in everything. So just whatever role you have in an organization, if you start to look through a security lens and talk about cybersecurity within the context of your role, you'll become an expert in that almost immediately. So
Yeah.
it's just starting to do the research where you're at and put cybersecurity into the context of what you're doing today. Immediately, you begin to show expertise, and that's really all it takes is the desire to learn about the area where you already have a platform. So I think people overcomplicate it by like, well, I need to go get this certification or go to this through this program. No, you just need to get curious about how do you secure that, or how might somebody uh, get through your security in your environment today, whatever your responsibilities are.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, it's very the technology is very black and white. There things around it are gray,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
if there is a concept or if there's a, with security, you can start with like learning from basic concepts, and they're black and white, right? It's just this is how it is. OSI model
Mhm.
is going to remain OSI model,
Right.
no matter what. So if you start from that, that's a great advice. Um, and so I have a last question, and it's an interesting one. It's like if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what career advice would you give, or just general advice would you give to your younger self?
Um, I would tell myself that confidence is essentially a skill. So when I was young, I had lacked so much confidence, so much self-esteem, and what I didn't understand is that by projecting confidence, you eventually become confident. And so I know for me personally, it was always a fine line between confidence and humility, because humility is a really it is a huge part of my value system. But over time, I've learned to be confidently humble. And so that would be the one thing that I would tell not only myself, but a lot of folks is that confidence is a skill that you can learn by practicing it. And I don't think this is gender related. I think men and women have, I think women talk about it, but I think men see the same thing too. But that's definitely something I would tell myself, because I think it would make a lot of it less stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, less stressful. It would
I
still be
mean,
hard work, but I think a little less stressful.
it's kind of like, I mean, I don't like that saying, but I'll still say it like fake it till you make it. I mean, I have used it because
Yeah,
I mean, when you enter the room, nobody knows what you know or what you don't know. So
right.
it's the body language or your first impression that you make. Um, makes the deal. I mean, we're in sales, right? Like you enter a room, you're reading the room, and the room is reading you as well. So thank you.
Exactly.
That's confidence definitely
Yeah.
plays a big role in
And
everybody's life.
I've heard I can't remember, somebody was bashing fake it until you make it. And I was like you shouldn't be fake and blah blah, and it's I remember when I was trying to learn executive presence, I was like, I got the feedback, you don't have good executive presence. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? And I read some book that said, how do you think you look at the front of the room? Picture yourself at the front of the room with executive presence. Okay, now go act like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's literally how you do it. You're like, okay, this is how I think I should appear. And that's fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it, Amy Cuddy
That's
says,
true.
which, yeah,
Yeah, and
I
this
like
like
it.
fake is not like you're like faking you're like illegally something doing something illegal.
No,
It's just like
exactly.
faking and fooling yourself into believing that you are capable of doing it and not and
Because you
you're
are.
like convinced. So that's
You
great.
just haven't done it yet, but you're absolutely capable. Yeah, 100% agree. And the research shows that people tend to follow other confident people. That our brains determine that your capabilities based on your confidence, right? So we categorize if you're good or not good at something based on how confident you show up. So you need to show up confidently regardless, and then you need to be competent too.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, I believe that was all the questions I had. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Cindy. It was great having you on this session, and I believe that our listeners are gonna enjoy and learn a lot from this conversation. So I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
your
me.
time. Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate you. Yeah, have a great
Thank
day.
you. You too. Thank you. Bye bye.